I set up Revector 10 years ago with a view to detecting fraud across the world in the mobile phone operators. We look at ways of finding illegal fraud, revenue assurance and security for the mobile operators. We've exported to over 80 countries around the world. So this has been driven by the demands of the mobile operators and the governments who are seeing this fraud being perpetrated in their countries, but also by my team pushing into these new countries. Each country has a different barrier. There's different challenges and there's different regulations. After living around the world in Hong Kong, Pakistan, Kuwait, I've never found a language as a barrier. However, recently visiting Chile and South America, I've realized that Spanish and Portuguese is a definite need in Latin America. And Chile was a more difficult market where we had to find somebody who could help us with the languages and the culture. We've exported to places like Russia, and again, there is a language barrier. However, what we've found is English is very acceptable, but all the contracts come in both Russian and English. So there's got to be a trust basis with the local operator that we are obviously contracting to the right things. The other barriers, including Russia, is withholding taxes. Every country around the world has a different regime, and my advice to anybody exporting would be to understand what taxes are going to be impounded by the companies or the governments of those countries, so you get your full revenue from your products. Importing equipment is always a challenge. Our business only imports a small amount of equipment. However, every country around the world seems to have a different rule and regulation. We address this by sending the equipment and then sorting the issue out when it arrives. In some countries, the local taxes need to be paid. In other countries, it's more of a paperwork exercise. And in some countries, such as Belarus, we couldn't actually export to. So again, ours is dealing in telecommunications equipment, and again, there may be government restrictions on which countries you can export to. So again, my advice there would be to look at what the rules and regulations are. But my real advice is to try rather than resist. After living in Pakistan back in 1999 and in the Far East before that, cultural sensitivity is quite important. Obviously, the new world is multicultural, but still the Middle East, for instance, even though it may seem very Western, still has a lot of traditional values. So you've always got to keep your guard up in these countries. And again, the male-female situation has got to be clearly observed and how you behave. Revector is exported to all these countries using its own initiative and common sense. However, in recent years, we have found the advice of the UKTI being very useful. There are a number of grants available to go to exhibitions, and we've used these in Barcelona, in a few weeks' time in Singapore, and over in the US. So I advise anybody to look at what's available, but also when going to countries to contact the UKTI in the UK and the local embassies, and there are a range of services which are available. So when you go there, you don't have to be on your own, especially if it's somewhere new. Revector exports to all these countries, but exports directly to the operators or to the governments. In other industries, I've found that utilising local support is the best way to get into the market, and finding the best people is paramount. I would suggest that a lot of time is spent initially in country, meeting people and building up a trust and rapport with these people before you actually engage in any long-term operations.